Hello and welcome back to another episode on a fairly hot day, I might add. Today I really want to talk to you a little bit about something that I didn't even know was a thing until relatively recently. Only really in the past year or so have I become aware of this concept of an EDC, an everyday carry. The tools, the materials, the items that you carry with you every day that help you get on with your day, whether it's little tasks like opening boxes or doing little DIY bits and bobs, making notes. An everyday carry, it seems, is crucial for many people, and many people, it seems, are interested in everyday carries. And I've become somewhat intrigued by this notion, not least because it seems that I have, for the past 15 years at least, had my own everyday carry. In particular, my everyday carry has always included a multi-tool, and this really started with my interest in tabletop gaming. In my teens, I was constantly making little models for Games Workshop and this kind of thing, Warhammer 40k, etc. I was making sort of the terrain for the tabletop. I was constructing and destructing items. I was experimenting with taking apart machines and all this kind of thing, just because I was intrigued and interested. And for that, I found it really useful to have a multi-tool. Now, unfortunately, my multi-tool from that time is no longer with me. It was swapped or sort of stolen from me, but I wasn't complaining too much because in return, I got this. In my first year at university, this Leatherman super tool was left with me. I woke up after a fairly heavy night, having spent the night out with someone called Paul, shall we say. I've deliberately obscured his name. And Paul wanted to see my multi-tool. I showed him and he showed me his. and I, it seems, went home with his tool, and he must have gone home with mine. Now, he was an extremely interesting character, was Paul. He drank all of his money away, all of his first year's loan essentially away in the first half term, or in the first half of the first term at university. So he had this phrase he always used to say, money, it's just numbers, man, it's just numbers. But he found himself on the first plane home once his parents found out what he'd done. His parents, incidentally, I believe at the time, were ambassadors to Sudan, I think. Anyway, they were ambassadors of some sort. So he was a slightly spoiled character, but extremely fond of alcohol, and because of that, I ended up with his Leatherman. Now, this was similar to my multi-tool, but in every way better, because as you'll probably know, Leatherman is a darn good tool manufacturer. They, for example, have or they certainly by this point in the early 2000s had mastered the old open to reveal pliers type of tool, and in each of the handles for the pliers we had some fairly good standards. There was a wood and metal file, there was there is a knife, and also a series of jimmies, pokers, and sort of odd things. I think one of them might be technically a reamer or something, some sort of hand reamer, which I've never fully understood what each one was differently for. One of them's probably a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver. The other one I think is just for jimmying things open. And this odd shaped one here, I'm not entirely sure of, I have to say. It's a slightly strange one, that one. So that's that side. And then on the other side we had a serrated knife, very useful, a bottle opener / tin opener, which again, very useful thing. And let me see, what else was there? There was another curious looking pokey thing. This time a Phillips head screwdriver, pretty useful, and also a wood saw. And I have to say, the Leatherman wood saw is spectacular. This thing, and indeed all Leatherman wood saws I've come across, they're as good as regular saws. They've just got a shorter length. I've cut through the equivalent of a 2x4 in seconds with one of these things. It's certainly tree branches, spectacular. So this for a long time, certainly for the past 10 years or so, has been my multi-tool of choice, and I've carried it with pride, sort of pride. I'm still a little bit guilty that essentially I got it because some guy was too drunk to remember to take it home. But you know what I mean. I've enjoyed using this multi-tool, and then when I got married, let me see, about 7 years ago, I was introduced to my wife's multi-tool, which is actually essentially a copy, a Rolson stainless quality tools, but it's a copy of the Leatherman Super Tool. So it's a slightly stiffer version. It doesn't quite have the sort of the quality feel of the Leatherman, but nonetheless, all of the equivalent, even that funny poker thing there is there. All of the equivalent tools: the Phillips head, the serrated knife, the bottle opener / tin opener is in there. And on the other side we have the metal file, and we have the jimmies and the joists and the pokers and the pointed knife. I suppose what I would say is that this knife has a nice sort of coming to a point, that whereas the official Leatherman version of that knife really was less of a pronounced sort of, this is a knife. You call that a knife? It's like a Boeing knife. Is that what it is? That sort of style. So. This one has a nice little element there, but it's all slightly less good quality. The metal isn't as good. The steel, I think, is a little bit less robust. This one certainly weighs less. You can tell just by feeling it, or feeling them. So really, this was my wife's multi-tool, and it's a poor imitation. And actually, you can tell the sort of the thicknesses and this kind of thing. And in fact, on the real Leatherman, what you get is a ruler. On the fake Leatherman, you get nails. So really, the Leatherman was where it was at. But after years of feeling guilty, years of having Paul's name on my Leatherman, Paul, I wanted to get my own Leatherman, and so I did some research, and I think I found the Leatherman for me. And so, as of a few days ago, I am now the proud owner and user of a Leatherman Sidekick. Now, the Sidekick is in so many ways, you can see that it's sort of the same family tree as this Super Tool. It feels around about the same weight. In fact, this feels slightly lighter considering the engineering. That's quite impressive. But certainly the way that the steel is handled, the quality of the hinge mechanisms, it's certainly still a Leatherman. I have already, in fact, engraved it with my initials, which is useful and handy. And, well, it has comparable usage. It has pliers with the needle nose, regular pliers, wire cutters, and also I think a wire stripper at the bottom as well. That's quite handy, except this version, spring-loaded. Very, very cool. This is, I can't tell you how many times I've been using the Super Tool, or for example, this is the Rolson, but it's the equivalent. How many times you're using it, and you have to sort of, you can't open it, with one hand. You have to. It's very, very annoying when you're trying to sort of hold something in place, and maybe bolt or unbolt something. Having it spring-loaded, just a pleasure, total pleasure. This version has a slightly simplified roster of tools, but I appreciate that, given that on the Super Tool there I got a bit confused about what was for what. So we have Phillips screwdriver and flathead screwdriver, nice and straightforward, nice solid metal, and also quite nicely you can see how they've actually labelled the screwdrivers with their heads on the metal. That's quite nice, cross and flat. So that's that side, and then on the other side of this simplified roster we have a small serrated knife, which is good for me actually, because I was always using the long serrated knife in situations where it wasn't required, just because I couldn't be bothered going from one side to the other once I'd gone to the wrong side to get the knife for the cutting of the thing. So actually having a small serrated knife is good for me. It means I won't use it when I shouldn't be using it. I'll be using the right knife for the right occasion. And a serrated knife is great for cutting things like rope, cable, basically things which often have many different layers, and so you want lots of different cutting edges as you slice through to get through hopefully in one go. So it's a nice little serrated knife. It's got a little lanyard ring in there that actually folds in and folds out. That's really useful. I've been using that to hang that on my desk, so it's always there, ready to go. And in addition to these two, we have a little ruler in centimeters and inches, or millimeters and I don't know, mini inches. And on the other side of that there is a wood and metal file, so quite handy, quite useful. And if I want to do some serious filing, I've got some serious files in the shed. This is well, for small jobs, just for finishing off that maybe that flash edge on a pipe or something. And in addition to that, we have the ever trusty bottle opener slash tin opener just there. So a reduced roster inside the handles of this thing, but I don't mind that at all. It means I've got less random pokey proddy straight pieces of metal to try and figure out what on earth they're used for. But the real pièce de résistance on this knife is the fact that the knives or the cutting edges are revealed in a smooth one-handed action. There we go. And so without having to open the handle itself, on this particular version we have a simple mechanism for opening both the knife and also the saw as well. So I don't know about you, but the knife is the tool I use the most on a multi-tool. And this one allows you to have quick, smooth access to the knife blade, and then a quick unlocking mechanism. There's a little padlock symbol, you push that in to allow the blade to slide back into position, and voila, there you have it. It's just elegant, and I really, really like this particular multi-tool. The Leatherman Sidekick is precisely what I hoped it would be when I first saw it. And I have to say, I got a really good deal on this. You have to keep an eye out, because Leathermans are very popular. In total, along with a thankfully finally spent gift voucher, this cost me about £7, which is about 10% of the price that it should have done. So couldn't be happier. And finally, I have a Leatherman, a multi-tool with my name on it. I don't have to be slightly ashamed every time I'm doing DIY. So there you have it. That's an element of my EDC. The Leatherman multi-tool in particular was a real find when I first got one. But now I've sort of have a sense of how I use my multi-tool. I'm an experienced multi-tool user. The Sidekick, at the moment at least, is the tool for me. Hopefully this has been vaguely interesting and or useful. And if you have any particular thoughts or comments on multi-tools, if you have any stories linked with your multi-tools, because they are sort of personal devices in that sense, aren't they? I'm sure there must be some interesting stories out there. Please do comment below and let me know. As ever guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.